I'm really excited about the discussion. I was in the forum questions, and you guys are doing some serious work and before and after this course. So I'm hoping you'll talk about it. And let's talk about any questions that you have. And the best part is that joining us today are Monica Cordero, who is a data journalist at Investigate Midwest. And she is a Report for America Core Fellow and a longtime data journalist and a graduate of Newmark J School, where I teach. And then Carmen Nobel is in both the first and second modules, or at least the first module, but she joined us for our first discussion too. And Carmen is from the journalist resource at the Harvard Kennedy School, and they are all about making academic research accessible for journalists. But you'll both talk more about yourselves, I hope. And yeah, so does anybody have anything they want to start talking about or any questions? You could put them in the chat or just pop on. I was really impressed with your discussion questions. And we have one in the chat. Oh, here's Carmen put in the journalist resource webpage, which is, it's really great. You just put in a topic and, go to town, and it also does many trainings on her website too, right, Carmen? Yeah. And
yes. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I was looking at the discussion forum, and many people were finding some really great resources that they wanted to dig into after the class, even though, you've been doing some amazing reporting anyway. That was our first question, to know, what your go-to sources were. But, the second question was about what you took away from learning about this data that's available on the web, and the sort of things that you could do for breaking news, to report on enterprise stories or follow-up stories after a big breaking story, to get some, real questions answered for people. And then also, how to use census data and new reports to either localize the data or just find story ideas in your community. Can we have some questions or discussion about that? I think, if you don't mind, Monica, you had a really good, let's see. So Jody said she checked out the journalist resource and it's marvelous. I know. I felt that too. My work focuses on disability issues. And though there were some results when I searched there, I was wondering if you'd be adding more in this realm in the future, Carmen.
Yes, I think I will say we're a very small staff of 4 in trying to cover all the public policy topics in the US, if not the world. So we are resource constrained. But yes, and I will say our managing editor, Denise Marie Ordway, is actually going to be on an investigative reporters and editors online conference panel about covering disability and also considering the needs of journalists with disabilities. So I will find the link to that, and then you can follow up with me.
Great question and great answer. Thank you. So yeah, there's more to come on certain topics. If you're really interested in a certain topic, we could talk that through for you. If you had any coups that you've had since taking the module, I know you may still be going through it. I wanted to share with you, Monica put together a really nice data for reporting guide that sort of mirrored what she was talking about. And I wanted to share that with you. And I should have got it earlier, but let me grab it now because it's really vital. And I wasn't able to make slides, Monica, but I have been sharing this guide with students, and I'm going to share it again here. This sort of mirrors and goes beyond, the explanations that Monica gave in her interview on, how she uses data to tell, very important stories now on the environment in the Midwest, and but so many different things. Monica, do you want to say anything?
Yes, but what is the question?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I just wanted, just riffing off your guide that you shared, but let's let everybody, get in there because we have another question. I
Do you
shared the
have
guide in
it
the
is
chat.
Can we check that if it's open to everybody? I think like
Yes.
I made the document open. Okay, perfect.
Yes, you did. You're
Okay.
good. I did check it, and you know how to share.
Uh,
So Laura mentioned that she has a basic question from the videos. So at some point, you mentioned we could open a new incognito window to find alternative results. Hi, Laura. I have never used incognito windows. So I'm not sure why you'd use it. Sure, that's a really good question. That's something that I want you to know. So let me share my screen. Hopefully, there's nothing crazy up there. No. Okay, so let me share with you, and we'll just show you how to do that. So, so the benefits of that are, they may or may not help you tremendously. So you could just search for, disability and journalism and guide, right? So it's usually, if you've been on Google for some time, it's going to point your results, and it's going to use all of your emails and your location and anything else to inform your results, right? Sometimes what you could do is you could go up to File here and then open a new incognito window and do the same search and then see if you get different results that aren't localized, right? If you want to, and you could even, so even if you put in like, disability journalism guide, California, it'll probably come up, but you might get some more local insight if you were to put that in, put that same search in incognito. So it's an experiment that you could try, Laura.
So what you are saying is that when you look for information, all these cookies that people take from you in certain way guide the results you get. So incognito allows me they don't know who I am and maybe show me something different. Wow,
in theory. In theory. So it could help you get, more broad results or just results that somebody in a different location might get if they use different keywords. Okay.
And
thank you.
Barbara, other advantage of incognito is that sometimes when there is a website, especially a news, something bad for us, but sometimes we don't have the resources to be subscribed to every newspaper, is that if you copy, for example, you want to look at a news clip in, I don't know, the Gazette in Iowa that is has this paywall, you copy paste the link, and sometimes works.
Yeah. So usually
Washington Post doesn't work, but there are some sites that you can read at least this specific article, but you have to paste the specific article that you want to.
Yes, and usually you just want this newspaper for a very specific thing, so it doesn't make sense to subscribe. Okay, right,
and
good. Thank you so much.
If you went through your 3 articles, right, Monica, and you just want this one other article for the month, you can go in and pull that article.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I forgot even to mention that. Okay, we got some more questions. Let's see. So Carmen put her email in. Thank you so much. How can you make sense of data when definitions change over time? Whoa. I'm looking at you. So for instance, I recently saw figures saying that pedal cyclist fatalities increased, but NTSA recently redefined cyclists to include electric bikes. Wow. So is comparing figures over time apples to oranges, to use an old cliche? That's a great question. What would you
No,
say?
it's you have every time that you use a data over time, you have to be sure about the methodology and what is changed.
Right.
Maybe they change one element that is not going to change the specific thing that you want to see over time.
Mhm.
But for example, it's happened with the census of agriculture. That is every 2 years. And if you go back to 2012, you could see that there are some questions that they made different. Or there are new questions in the 2022 census that are not included in 2014. Then when you use data over time, you have to be sure that the methodology of this period of time, when they gather the data, when they analyze the data, is the same. Because if not, you cannot compare pairs with apples.
And what you can do is just explain the discrepancy, right? You could be transparent about the changes that happened and, say we can't look back on this for decades because that parameter, that variable didn't exist.
Yes.
And yeah.
The methodology, the sidebar that you have, it's a good idea, or it's the best practice is to add, even if you analyze a small database, to add a sidebar in order to, okay, this is what the data has, this is the flows of the data, and this is what I did. Then the reader at the end can have an idea what he has in front of him, of them, sorry.
Right. That's so Raphael said usually you can ask the statistics organization to help you understand the changes. So that's really great advice too.
Yeah.
You call them up if it's not clear, like, that's a pretty big jump. But this definitely happens frequently with the census. So yeah, whenever you're going back decades too, you want to always be careful because some questions just did not exist. Some counts did not exist, Okay.
We have to remember that data is like when you're working with data, is working in any other story. Your best friend is going to be the guy expert in statistics, the guy expert in math, the guy who gathering the data, because these are the people that can answer your question. Don't hesitate even to do sometimes maybe we feel uncomfortable to do a basic math question, but it's better to do the questions to the expert that made a mistake in your story.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. And yeah, the expert is going to be your guide and to tell you how to handle that. So Charles is asking, how can you make sense of data when definitions change over time? Oh, that was it. Sorry. I knew that's where I could take you first, and I'm glad I did it. Okay, that's great. Any great online courses for training up on working with data? Pandas, for example, Excel pivot tables. I find I can't learn these things. I can learn these things, but they don't stick in my oh man, I feel this one, Joy. I don't stick in my non-programmer head. YouTube has tons, but I'm wondering if Carmen's group or if Monica knows of others, something for journalists that you would recommend for getting, some straightforward data help that might stick.
I want to do a comment about this idea that the thing is not stake in our head. This is our impression. Okay. Because, and at the end, what make you an expert is do the thing, well, not an expert, or be more comfortable with the data is when you do something all over again. Then maybe the first time that you, I don't know, split a column in Excel, it took an hour to do that. But when you do it the second time, the third time, the fifth time is going to be natural. Then don't worry if you don't feel, it's not a test. You could have your notes, you could have the, like, for example, when I work on a pandas notebook, I have like a template. Like, okay, this is import. I always put my import data, where the data, the code that allowed me to import the data to my notebook. Like I have like a basic guide already as a template. I only copy and you made a copy of the notebook. Then I don't have to struggle. You know, when you open the notebook, you feel like you are cold. I like go to run. You need to stretch and warm up your muscles, and then it could give you like it's gonna make your things easy. But don't think like you are not learning. It's there, and at the end, it's gonna be there.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Carmen, you definitely have data courses on yours too.
Yes, and well, right now we have recordings of online videos that are about, they're less about nitty-gritty things like using Excel tables. Yes, and I will double the sentiment that that's a learning by doing thing. And I have the same thing. I took an online Excel class and came out thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. But then as I practiced, then I realized, okay, some of it stuck. And then I made it stick myself. On our website, we have a little section called Know Your Research, which is just tip sheets and explainers to help journalists understand research terminology and methodology and avoid missteps when they're reporting on the data. So it's kind of when you start looking into the data, if just helping people, and I'll share that link.
I'm going to share it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Know Your Research. Yeah.
The other thing is my husband, who is not a data-minded person at all, but is a longtime journalist, now works for the Global Investigative Journalism Network. And he writes, he interviews data journalists about what they do and explains them in terms that he will understand, such that other people who don't think they're data-minded will understand. So I can share some of the links to that too. But yeah, often it's a confidence thing more than an inability to understand thing.
Yeah. Do you have anything you wanted to add, Monica?
The investigative reporters and editors, you have to subscribe to the organization, but I'm going to share it here. I was
just going to share that too. Thank you.
Yeah, they have the videos of the conference, the web seminars, and I learned a lot when I was learning Excel in the NICAR Learn website. Yes, they have. I haven't seen the site for a long time.
I haven't.
But they have Excel, SQL, and I think IRE teaches R and Python. If you ask me what is better, it's like, I don't know if you like a Mac or you like a PC. Is a tool, it's the same, it's only a flavor.
I put in NICAR Learn. NICAR Learn, it's on-demand videos, and I think there is a price, but you do get a certain free trial. So you could take advantage of that. And it's a very nominal price to pay for the on-demand trainings, but if you are a member of IRE, you can also access other trainings that they have at their conferences and the kind of smaller conferences, local conferences that Carmen was talking about. And I got through a whole data project on landlords and how much money they made that was not previously open. And I was able to get that from the Department of Finance after pulling teeth for a long time. And then I had to do something with it. And, just by going through the NICAR trainings, I was able to, can I do it now? No, because that was a couple of years ago. So I'd have to do them all over again for that very reason that you mentioned. I haven't been working that muscle enough along the way.
And I have other tip. There is this guy called Jonathan Soma. He's the director of the data, the director of the program of the data program at Columbia University.
Right.
And he has this videos in YouTube. He's an amazing guy. Love cats, and it's he loves cats, and he has this videos in YouTube, and he make you feel that it's easy to do. He works in Python. Then it's a good if you can follow him, is you are going to learn a lot.
My colleague also, thank you, Monica. My colleague also, my colleague Lamvo at the J School, she shares all of her teaching documents.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to, and she even has a book on there. If you want to mine social media for, just have it be a corpus of data that you look for certain phenomenon. It's very interesting. So Jonathan Soma, thank you. That's really, yeah, thank goodness for the having the little transcript of the chat. That's helpful. Was there anything else? Any burning questions anyone had, I hope? Don't feel shy. You can you can unmute. You bet. So let's see. So research investigation.
There's a question from Mariam Enani.
Oh, I didn't see Mariam. Let's see.
She was building on my question, and she says, I have been thinking about since, she says, if I may build on Laura's question on incognito mode, and from something that Barbara mentioned last week that I have been thinking about since then. Barbara, you mentioned that you feed algorithm to your account to get better results.
Yes. That's very astute that you said that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I missed this, Miriam. Thanks, Laura. So what I meant by that is I started in this job at a weird time, just when the internet came out, and my brother was an early adopter. He's a kind of a big deal now in hospital computing. But I learned to use computers when I was young, going through school, and then high school and college, and then I got a job in newsrooms right when the internet came out. And then in 1999, probably like 2 years after I started, Google came out, and mind blown, still mind blown. So what I meant by that, Miriam, and I'm very glad you asked, that I have been doing these kinds of, trying to develop these kinds of searches, the Boolean type searches, or just the adding connectors and terms to feed Google the types of things that I want to get back, right? I don't use natural language, almost never. Once in a while, if I want to, go crazy, I'll put in just a natural language sentence, like, environment Iowa data, or flooding Iowa data, right? You could put that in, but usually I'm going to want to see it from a government perspective, an org perspective, and news perspective. I want to see what's in books. I want to see what's in the EDU domain and on Google Scholar. So I have been doing that for how many years is that? 25 years since Google's been alive. So that is what I meant by feeding the algorithm. I have just been doing that for so long. I haven't really noticed that Google's sucking for people with the AI coming up, and people are like, what is this that I'm looking? My niece was like totally perplexed, like, okay, now what do I do? I have to teach her. But that's what I meant by that, Miriam. And, it's never too late to start, and you can keep telling Google what you want it to do for you. So that's terrific. So my missing
I'm going to unmute myself just to follow up.
Great.
So thank you. I was wondering if like feeding the algorithm kind of makes your the results that you see a little bit biased, perhaps. So like I've noticed this while I was working on politics. And I felt like the kind of results that have been showing at the top on the first page are kind of more aligned with what Google would assume I would like to see.
Right.
So I was wondering if this was something that you saw while you were like trying to feed the algorithm for more productive results.
I can't remember, but I think yes. And I think once Wikipedia showed up, and I have nothing against Wikipedia, I have nothing but, it's one of humanity's greatest accomplishments, Wikipedia. But I didn't want to be fed Wikipedia all the time. And I don't just want to be fed AI. I look at AI. But yes, Mariam, that is, while you're working on that, and your algorithm also contains, like the words you use in your email and it's anonymized, of course, but it's not a great thing in terms of, what humanity sacrificed to be able to do this. But it is going to be, I don't remember in the beginning because I was always trying to work with the research people at the search team at Google and my colleagues. We were always on the race for, how best to do this. So I think it's worth a shot. See what comes up just when you search. And then that's why you have to really experiment, and it might be great that, something that's not a .gov or a .edu, that you capture that, right? So I always say, just do your Google search first and then do the URL domains, right? The types of domains. But yeah, it is a very fraught thing, and we have to do the best we can to work within it. I don't know how, I'm hoping it's going to continue to be useful, and then I'll continue to be able to do this because Google's not meant for us. Google's meant for everyone who wants to just put, simple keywords in and get what they get and then just read it. They're not trying to publish it. They're not trying to verify it. I wish more people were. But that's a really good question. Yeah. Laura, did you want to add? And then I'll get to
for me, this using the algorithm, it's been the best time with this course because you made examples for journalists, so it really makes sense.
Yeah.
I usually don't use algorithms or and dots and things like that. I usually make the question, like if I was talking to someone, and usually I get good results. I wanted to share that. Sometimes I just make the question as I would do to a person in the other side. Yeah. And usually through that, I also manage to get good sites to search.
That's great. And that's why you should always make that pass first. That's what Google's meant for. It's more like it's evolved over time to be more natural language, like so people aren't, deterred from using it, right? But I don't know why I was so in love with doing these kind of things. I did it before, there were other databases that weren't online, like LexisNexis, that I've been using since the 90s, the mid 90s, I guess, or maybe early-ish 90s. And so, yeah, I really think that we got to keep trying our best to find out what's buried beyond the general natural language search. Yeah. I have D. Parker here asked a question. Thanks for that. For research and investigation, I often use a separate PC or device that I do no other work on. That's a great idea, such as Chromebook for going online only with no docs, email, social media, or other apps. That keeps the system more private. No cookies or pixels can access info of mine. That's really great. If you're doing sensitive investigations too, that's a really good idea. And I found that the best for that, I'm going to put in the Freedom of the Press Foundation. So how to keep your sensitive material, out of the Google algorithm, and sometimes, if you're doing a sensitive investigation and you are, you could just, and a company or an individual or the government searches for, sends a subpoena to Google to look at your documents, you could really expose a source. So this is really important to know, and we didn't get into it at all, but I just wanted to put this in here because I love the Freedom of the Press Foundation. Yes, and VPN is very good too. Some of your colleagues, posted this. Oh, how are you? As an example of using AI to analyze a data set. So that's Gemini. Okay, we're going to have this analysis with Gemini. That's very interesting. Thank you. So that was really terrific. Thank you for pointing that out. We always have to keep in mind our own safety. And yeah, we've sold enough of our, we've bartered enough of our data, to be able to search for things that, ads is one thing, but, having all our data out there and, with no compensation and no consideration, we might want to stop doing that. So Catherine Tam asks, in terms of retaining what you learned from Excel and or data journalism, I find that it also helps to continue using those concepts in your own life. For instance, after I took some local classes to learn basic to intermediate Excel formulas, I continue to use them to help manage my finances. Wow, that's very clever. Yes, because if you don't use it every day, you lose it is the problem. Exactly. So that is a very good thing. And you can even do like simple calculations on some data that you have just to get an idea when you look at the data, just to say, I can still do this. I love that. That's a really great point. Now, Jody said, thank you all for being here and for this amazing course and the resources. You have to run. Okay. Thanks so much, Jody. You may be gone already, but thanks for coming. So Abdulaziz, do any of your guests use any AI tools that help you sort and interpret the data for you? Oh, okay. So Yuli mentioned Gemini. So that's very interesting. So I wonder, do we know if Google Pinpoint is AI too?
Google Pinpoint, it's
just regular.
It's a bit, well, a few months ago was a beta version that give you like a summary of the document and you could ask questions.
Great.
I don't know if I had the opportunity when I went to NICAR, I was in a class and they give us access to the beta version. I don't know. I think like if you're a journalist, you could request, but it's, yes, it's because a Pinpoint give you the information of locations, names, names of companies and people. But in this version, give you, okay, this is the main things that this is this document about. And then you have the opportunity to ask questions. I don't know if Monica Quintero is part of the document or it mentioned, I was looking one document related with segments of the Department of Natural Resources of Iowa makes tests to the water, but a river have different sections. A river is breaking down by sections, and I was looking for a specific section. Then I could find the section asking what sections of the river are.
Wow, so it does AI. Okay.
Yes, it's not that. Maybe it's not that. Intuitive.
Advanced.
Okay. But it works. I think that they are improving it.
That's great. And I would love to try Gemini too. There is our next video on data does include pinpoint when you get documents and you're considering making your own data set, because I was able to do that. And there's a lot of training on it, and Google really wants journalists to use it. So I was able to get advertising documents. We have no idea how New York State spends its advertising dollars. And we wanted to find out how many community media outlets they spent that money on. And it turned out to be like 2% or less than 5%. Most of it goes to the really huge TV stations and conglomerates and, private equity and all that stuff. And then some of it goes to like Meta and, where you don't really know what you're getting, right? In theory, you're supposed to have targeted audiences and whatever, but they don't really disclose how we know that they're getting what, the audience that we need. And a lot of money went to them too. So I was able to take those PDF documents with the help from one of our data people in Jennifer Chen in the Center for Community, the Center for Community Journalism. And she really helped me so much to query things in Pinpoint. So I don't go into it in depth, but if you try taking documents that you got and then querying them, right, what it does is it will do it will put it into optical character recognition format for you so that it can read the words. And it's especially good with structured data that you might get from an agency, right? So, and I also included a reading about, watching how to pull that structured data so you can tell some kind of stories. I hope that that's helpful, Abdulaziz. Let's see. Did you read my post to Moo about the lack of data objectivity objectively assessed the prevalence of abuse in conservatorships? Wow, despite the scandals. Oh my goodness. No, let me look at that because, Tamu linked to that. Thank you. I found the conservatorship case, not being a fan, but because a CNN reporter falsely reported some information. And then, so were you able to find data, Tamu? Can you give us sort of the upshot of that? Were you able to find data about how other decisions were made surrounding abuse in conservatorships? That's a good thing to look for. Must be hard to do. Okay, so that's what you're asking, actually, right? You're asking, how do we find that? Okay, I have a couple of ideas. Anybody else jump in? So, Tamu, here's my advice. So there is a thing, like every court in the United States has a thing called the courts, like the federal courts, the state courts. It's court administration data, right? It's court administration. So it depends on which court you look at. But I bet, I'm betting that you can't go through the conservatorships as a journalist, right? There's much stuff that we don't have access to as researchers because we're journalists, right? We're going to publicize it, and it's too risky for anonymous data. But there may be, Tamu, a researcher who has gotten access to anonymized research and given some insight into either the prevalence of abuse as a cause of action in conservatorships, meaning that's like why they're, saying they want to, stop the conservatorship. So I would start, there is that court administration. So you may get some data there about how many have been, started or how many have been, applied for. But only a researcher could go into that anonymized data and find out some details to give you insights. Does that help? And I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'll make sure I go through the discussions in this thing. Okay. Rupa, this is a great course with many useful research tips. Thank you. I would love your advice regarding a piece of information I've been trying to find today. I'm working with an article about Detroit's iconic water towers. Oh, and I would love to know the specific number of water towers still standing in the city. I've not been able to find the information, so have emailed the city's sewage, water, and maintenance department. That makes sense. The city's commissioner. Well, I'm waiting for them to get back to me. Do you have any recommendations on how I can find this information? Okay. Google Pinpoint. Let me do that for you right now. Google, it's in your next module, Google Pinpoint, as well as Google Document Cloud, which can do the same, but they charge you a pretty large amount for that. Okay. So sorry, I got sidetracked there. Here's what I would start with, and I'm sure you already did, but let's see, Rupa, if I get different results than you. I doubt it, but let's try. So how many water towers still exist in Detroit? Is that, do I have that correct? Okay. Let's
Yes.
see. Thank you. Okay, so what I would ask a student is there any other information describing these things that you know that would show up in an agency's site? Like, do they have a different name? So that's always something I ask the students because they know it and they don't often put it back into the search, right? So if you can think of that, or you find that, or we find that, water towers is the purpose of them to store water always?
Yes, to store water. A lot of them are no longer in use. So yeah, storage. So a lot of them are just part of like the factories. They're just have been abandoned.
So you want still operating, what's a word we could use for that? Anybody? Still operating, functional, right?
It would be great. It would be great to have like the total number of water towers and then the ones that are still in use, like out of that, ones that are still in use.
Okay.
So
let's try both and we can take out functional afterwards. Or take out total afterwards. Site, well, we could do that. This is my first go-to. It's kind of stupid, but I find that it works. Especially when you have a straightforward question here, or at least you think it's a straightforward question and you cannot find it. And why is that, right? So let's give it a shot. Oh, and I forgot the most important part. Detroit. Okay, and I spelled it wrong. Nice. Detroit. I wasn't feeling good today. You guys made me feel good. You made me feel much better. Thank you. Okay. What is the purpose of water towers? Okay. So this may be similar to what you've seen. I'm going to share this with everybody and everybody can look through with me. And then maybe we can pull out some interesting stuff while we're going through. The pros and cons of underground drinking water. That's not really a water tower. Okay, let's see. System monitor national. Okay, so Detroit and then water tower storage. So total. We could also do how many. That's also, it's a little piece of natural language. And when you put quotations around a certain word, that means you're just around one word. You're trying to tell Google, search for this word verbatim. I don't want anything else without this word. And then when you do two words, you want those words next to each other. So how many? So let me try this one and I'll share it. Okay. Okay. Don't know that it's of any good use, but let's check it out. Let's put this in here for you in the chat. And I think, I didn't send it. So that was the first. This was the first one. So, where isn't it going? Okay, this is the first one. Let me try the second one. Okay,
Oh, okay. Elevated water tanks. Okay.
Okay. Oh, see, there's your phrase. There's your jargon. What's it called? Elevated water tanks.
Yeah,
That's
that's
nice.
thank you,
You're
Alexandra.
welcome. I'm trying to put this in. Is it going in for you? I don't know why it's not letting me. But okay, so then we're going to do this. We're going to do elevated. This is 90% of the time that you're. So I want to. I think I used this example in my last office hours, but so like we were searching and searching for a student who wanted to like some data or just anything she could read about the concept of someone who's so weird looking that they're attractive. So it turned out the French had a term called jolie. I can't remember what it's called now. I'm sorry. But if you have this elevated water towers, if you find that word, that agencies and okay, let's see what we could take away. So elevated water towers. Okay. So UPA, that's a good place to check out. And I want to get rid of we might leave how many, and we might leave Detroit, and we could do site colon edu, right? Okay, that's Florida. Let's try Gov, which is probably going to be Gov. It's probably going to be better. Yeah. I don't know if this is going to get you what you need necessarily, but you can try. Let's try. Let's try data. Just data, and then we can do. I might try for this. I might try Google Scholar just real quick. I know there's more questions, so I'll get to those right now. But I think that's going to help you. And I think when you send a request for help, that's going to help them too, because they might necessarily know about elevated water towers versus water towers, right?
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, thanks. This is really great. I don't want to take up anyone else's time,
I'm so glad.
but
So
I
glad to
really,
help.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I ask a suggestion?
Yes, definitely.
These water towers should be regulated for some law.
Yes.
Then find the law, figure out where they have they need a permit.
Much better advice. Yeah.
Then try to understand better how the system works. If I want to have one of these towers, when they build them, they have to have a permit which is the agency in charge of this. If there are form, if you find a form that allow people to have this permit, behind this form there is data. And the other thing is EPA has to regulate this in some way. Then
always look for oversight, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then, oversight. Because you're going to find that if you approach the problem like this, you're going to have the agency who manage the data or who has stored the data or gathered the data, the kind of data that you could get through the law that regulate that specific issue. Then if it is not available online, you could request a FOIA, but you already know what is there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Monica.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to answer Manoj's question. So there's a lot of discussion around price gouging. I'm going to crowdsource this. Any thoughts on how to use data to approach how companies may or may not have manipulated prices for profit? Anybody have any ideas how to approach that?
What is the question? Sorry.
Sure, that's okay. There's a lot of discussion around price gouging. Any thoughts on how to use data to approach how companies may or may not have manipulated prices? Like, who would have that data? How could you tell a story with it?
So, deep question.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone has an idea, pop it in. I'm going to give my idea first. I think that, let's see, I'm going to go back and read it better. Yeah, so I think that there are organizations that do this regularly. They compare, and I would make sure I look at them to see if they're partisan or not, and if they have an agenda. But and look at Consumer Reports to see if they've talked about price gouging, and who keeps track of that? Is it an academic? Does the government do that on a regular, albeit really small scale, because you can't look at every supermarket, right? But I think that's what I would start with and see what data is available there. Like start from the most recent and go back to see how broad you can go. Anybody else have a suggestion for that?
Maybe someone who take a look, who analyze the industry. These people always have the data, because in some way they get the data. An analysis, and I don't know how to say that in English, and people who analyze that kind of industry.
If we have some time, Laura wanted to bring, we only have a few minutes, but Laura wanted to bring the discussion to other countries like Mexico, where we don't have a tradition of building on good databases. Okay. So I've been thinking with this course that ONGs could become the source to look at, but there may be biases there too and agendas in the academia. But then the universe of data to work with is not as good. Dr. Booker, Nancy Booker, from Kenya, she's the dean of a journalism school there. She said that what they do, because of the overwhelming absence of data, is that they rely on colleagues. So if there's a colleague that has more resources, you can actually reach out to them and ask for certain things. And they can reach out to you to get something on the ground, or a contact that you use. So consider that. I don't know where you do it, but you could do it one person at a time. And then the second thing I think is, I know that Mexico's data has been improving over the last, say, 10 years or so, like places where you wouldn't think that they have data and records, they do. So keep track of what's becoming available, and as it becomes available, what to do with it. But then there's also, like you said, academics. You do have to look out for an agenda, and it can be dangerous too in certain countries to point out.
What about trying to, like, for example, the US that have so many information? With the Tower Waters, I'm just amazed of how many things you can find. So what if you use information from countries that are near you, or you have communities that can be similar to yours, and try to make that information a way to make the question, maybe in your piece, asking what could be the case if this is happening there, or something like that.
You can say what you were able to get and why, and then say, like, this comparable city in the US has this many of that, and there is no data.
For example, in health, we have a lot of Mexican communities living in the US, and we have information for those communities. So maybe you can use that information to extrapolate
longevity, or although people aren't living very long in the US.
But it could be nice. I could post this to our colleagues that are over there, because many of them are from countries like Mexico. So I would like to hear from them also what they do to work with data.
What do they do?
I
think that's a great idea. And that when Dr. Booker said that, I was like, that is super resourceful. And you need data to be able to tell stories. Carmen added, Dr. Pamela Teester knows a great deal about guardianship abuse. Oh, that's great. I'm gonna thank you. Oh, that's terrific. Thank you, Carmen. Let's see. And then let's see. Okay, regulations is too long. Let's see, price gouging. Okay, we could start with the cost of groceries. Start with, in a location, what the price of groceries was and is now, right? And then in Canada, they have Raphael said that there's a regulatory authority called the Competition Bureau. Wow. Yeah, it's worth a look, definitely. And let's see. Da, da, da. We've got Parker. Here's some more.
Manoush is proposing to export the chat because we're getting many information in the chat too.
Oh
that
yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting.
Hopefully, Camila, yeah, on both of our office hours, if we can export the chat because there's lots of searches in there and whatever else, if that's okay.
Monica's email, which is good.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you,
I'm going to
Monica.
share it.
Absolutely. I just went on sabbatical, so you can still reach me at the J School, and I'll send you that email. But I'm not going to check it as often because I'm writing a book. Let's see, Barbara Gray journalism. There's also a Barbara Gray comedian, who's much younger than me. So we get mistaken for each other on TikToks. I mean, X sometimes. Let's see. So here's my.
I would like to add a comment about this lack of data. I feel like sometimes you could create your own data.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I know that I don't think like in our countries, because I am from Costa Rica, there's no data. The data is there. What you have to do sometimes is improve the data. For example, you can think in cross databases that maybe are connected. Create your own data. Talk with people that study in the universities that's a specific issue that you want to do a story about. But I know that Mexico has an interesting a law for access data. As I understand, because I worked with some colleagues from Mexico a few years ago, that there was a new law and well, they say that it was a new law, you know better than me, but as we understood in that project that there was the government there was this law that allow you to request data. Then I think like the thing is to be in Spanish will be mañoso, like figure out how to.
But that law has gone. It's gone with this government now, Monica.
Oh my goodness!
The transparency of it is almost gone. So that's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem.
Oh,
well,
wow.
The thing is, the most important thing, you have to learn about the law that exists. So the rules that you are playing with, and try to figure out how to get what you want. I think like it's the persistence. And I think like maybe it's something that characterize, I talk for Latin American journalists because it's where I come from, but sometimes is how we have to think out of the box to get what we want.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you so much for that. And we do cover a little bit about creating your own data set in the next module, and Monica and Amanda weigh in about that. So thank you so much. And thank you for participating. I will go through the discussions and see if I can answer any questions. And thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you and being a member of this community surrounding this class. Thanks.